Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today we are going to be doing top 10 scariest horror movies of all time. Now this is my own personal list, so I'm not totally sure if you're gonna find this scary or not, but these are the ones that actually scared me as someone who has seen like a million different horror movies. So hopefully you guys will find some of these scary, and if not, I apologize, but let's just jump right into it. First up, we have a kind of controversial pick. Some people find this really scary, some people don't, but it is the movie Poughkeepsie Tapes. Now, I find Poughkeepsie Tapes a really interesting movie because it's in found footage style, but it feels very realistic to the point where it feels like a documentary, which is what I think makes it so scary. It's essentially just about a serial killer who has a bunch of tapes and they find them and they're trying to capture him. And you get to watch the different tapes as it goes through each murder. So it's in like chronological order, but the scariest part about this movie is the victim named Cheryl, who is a college student in her early 20s, and she ends up getting kept by the serial killer and held in captivity. And oh my god, some of these scenes are so freaky, especially there's this really scary scene where she's wearing this like weird mask. If you watch it, you'll know what I mean, but this movie kind of freaked me out because I am terrified of someone sneaking around my house and me not knowing it, which is what happens. Spoiler alert. There's a couple spoilers mixed in here, but I'm not going to give too much away about it. It is very choppy found footage at times. It did give me a bit of nausea because I get motion sickness with found footage, but I think that added to the element of scariness because I not only felt creeped out, but I also felt nauseated. So I think it did its job. I do think this film is a little cheesy at times, but what found footage film isn't? So yeah, I think this is one of the scarier ones I've watched. It made me feel really unsettled in general. And there's a lot of really bizarre moments. So this one is very disturbing. If you can't handle disturbing stuff, I don't know if I would check this one out, but I do find it really scary. Next up, we have a classic movie. I love this horror movie. It is The Descent. So this movie, if you've never heard about it, is about a group of women who are going on vacation together, and they decide to explore a cave, but what ends up happening is they end up getting lost because the cave has never been explored before, and one of the more adventurous women pretty much tricked them into thinking that she knew what they were doing and where they were going, but she didn't know at all. So they get lost in this cave, and turns out there are a bunch of creatures down there. Now, this movie I find so scary because I am extremely claustrophobic to the point where like I can't even have like a pillow over my face at all or anything. So the cave exploration part is honestly horrifying to me, and I think it makes you feel really closed in the entire movie. Like it kind of makes you feel like you can't breathe, but in combination with them being in total darkness and having these creatures behind them, I think it's like the scariest combo ever. So this is a good one if you're looking for some really good jump scares, but you're also claustrophobic. If you're claustrophobic, you'll definitely find this one scary, but I think it would be scary to pretty much anyone. And it's also just an amazing movie. It has great acting. It's a very interesting setting. So I think it's pretty much a 10 out of 10 horror movie anyways. If you don't get scared, then that's okay. At least you watch something good. Next up, we have a kind of controversial pick because once again, similar to Poughkeepsie Tapes, some people find it scary, some people don't. But this is Skinamarink. I didn't even get through this movie, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, I couldn't finish this one because it legit made me feel like I was going into psychosis. So if you're looking for something that will psychologically mess with your mind to the point where you feel like you're going into psychosis, then watch this movie. Essentially what it's about is these kids end up waking up and their dad is gone, but also the house is suddenly missing all the doors and windows. It's filmed in kind of like a found footage type of way. Imagine watching an old home video on a VCR. That's kind of how Skinamarink looks. But these kids just kind of wander around aimlessly and do creepy things because they can't leave and they're trying to find an escape. So I think this movie is creepy because of the found footage element, but also kind of, once again, the claustrophobia aspect where you feel like everything's kind of closing in and you also feel trapped similar to these kids. I think that it's maybe not the best movie on this list because the plot is kind of not there. If you're looking for something with more of a plot, I don't think that this one is really that great in regards to that, but it is really, really scary. So if you're looking for something not very plot heavy, that's just kind of creepy to look at and has cool visuals, then this one's a good one to check out. Next up, we have a movie that I recently recommended in one of my YouTube shorts, which is The Rental. This was directed and written by Dave Franco, which is interesting. I didn't know that he was really getting into the directing scene, but this movie is actually really good and really underrated. It's essentially about a group of two couples who go to an Airbnb and they realize that they're being filmed with hidden cameras, but it has a lot of plot twists that you're really not going to expect. And it also has a very silent killer who appears out of nowhere. This has some of the scariest jump scares I think I've ever seen in a movie, and it's really weird that it's so underrated because not only is the plot really entertaining, but the jump scares are actually so scary that when I watched it with my friend a while ago, she ended up screaming because it was so creepy. So if you're looking for something that's kind of like the movie Halloween in regards to like Michael Myers and how silent of a killer he is, then I think this is a good one to check out because I honestly think he's way scarier than Michael Myers. So not only is this just a really well done movie, but it's also genuinely really scary. And the hidden camera thing, ugh, that stuff creeps me out a lot. I always like to make sure that there's no hidden cameras, especially in public restrooms, because I don't know, you could hide a camera anywhere these days, and that's just a really, really scary fact. So if you're scared of hidden cameras in Airbnbs, this is a good one to check out. Next up, we have another very underrated horror movie. This is the sequel to the movie The Strangers. This one is called The Strangers Pray at Night. And this movie I feel like is never talked about as being a really, really solid sequel, but I have to say, I think that this movie is even better than the first Strangers, and I think it's way scarier. So it essentially has a similar plot to The Strangers one, but it takes place in an RV park where this family goes to settle in for the night, but nobody's there, and they end up getting terrorized by a group of 3 strangers in masks. And I think what makes this movie so scary is the fact that once again, the killers are very, very silent. And you can never tell when they're sneaking up. There's this really, really terrifying scene in like a tunnel or like a sewage pipe. I don't really know how to describe it, but there's a horrifying scene inside that tunnel pipe that I think makes this one of the scarier movies I've seen. I jumped a lot during this one personally, and I don't really jump during horror movies. So if you're looking for something that'll make you jump out of your seat, this is a good one. Classic slasher, but also really creepy. It has some great acting in it, which I really enjoyed. And I really do think that this is an underrated gem because not very many people talk about it, but it legitimately scared me more than the first one. So if you guys are looking for a really solid sequel and you love the movie The Strangers, you gotta check out The Strangers Pray at Night. Okay, next up we kind of have an interesting choice. This one is personally very scary to me because I imagine myself in that situation and it's just so uncomfortable. So this is the movie Tusk. This movie is talked a lot about because it's very weird body horror, similar to think Human Centipede, but obviously way better because the Human Centipede is kind of awful. But Tusk is essentially about this journalist who goes to interview this man who has a weird obsession with walruses and a lot of weird body horror stuff. A lot of surgery happens. I don't really want to spoil it if you haven't seen it, but something very, very disturbing happens, and the ending is so bleak and horrifying that it had to be put in my list because if this happened to me, I don't know what I would do. I would have to find a way to end it all because there's just no way. That's all I'm gonna say about this one. Viewer discretion advised, very disturbing, but also very good. So check it out if you want to. Next up, we have the OG Blair Witch Project. Now, this movie I am very nostalgic for because it's like one of the first found footage horror movies I ever watched. Once again, I think I just find found footage very, very scary, so this might just be a list that's curated for people who also find found footage scary. But the Blair Witch Project is about a group of 3 young adults who go exploring the woods based on some urban legends, and they end up coming across a lot of really spooky paranormal stuff related to the Blair Witch. I think this one's really scary because by the end of the movie, you kind of start to get these weird jump scares that you don't really anticipate. I would say the first half of the movie isn't very scary, but once you get to the second half, it's really creepy. I think that this one's just creepy because it feels so real. It really was one of the first really popular found footage films, and a lot of people thought it was real because of how realistic the acting was. Apparently the actors were really scared while filming this, so that made it feel really realistic and interesting. So that's why I put it on this list. I think that it might not be the scariest to everyone, but I think for its time period and what they did, it's a really unique perspective. Next up, we have the movie House of a Thousand Corpses. Now, this is a Rob Zombie movie, and sometimes Rob Zombie movies can be very hit or miss, but I really do love this one. It's kind of hard to explain the plot to this because it's all over the place, but it's essentially about this group of college students who are going on a road trip, and then they run into this weird gas station that's also an exhibit run by like a clown. This sounds absurd. But then they end up going to this house with this really weird family, the Firefly family, and they realize there's a lot more to the family than what meets the eye. Essentially kind of like a Texas Chainsaw Massacre sort of situation. But I think what makes this movie really creepy is just how disturbing the characters are. I feel like they get so much love out of torturing people, but they also seem weirdly normal at times, where it's this weird, creepy, you don't really know what's going on type of feeling, and it's just disgusting, you know? It makes you feel like you need a shower after watching it, which I just felt really grimy watching this movie, and it's a weird mix of a lot of different things, and it's also set in the desert, which I think makes it scary. I love desert films, so I think this is a good one to check out if you want to be pretty disturbed and you also want some great acting, because the actors in this movie are really good, especially Bill Moseley. Ugh, that man like creeps me out to my soul. If I ever met him, I think I would be terrified. But yeah, this is visually very scary, also really interesting. It's just a really solid Rob Zombie movie. So if you haven't watched it, I think that this is a good way to kind of get into Rob Zombie, because this is one of his better films and it's also like one of his first movies. So it's a very interesting directorial debut. Next up, we have a movie that I think people aren't very aware exists. It's a part of the Terrifier series. It's called All Hallows Eve. This one came before the Terrifier movies. But All Hallows Eve is kind of interesting because it's a collection of short horror stories, kind of like an anthology. So it's not only about Art the Clown like the Terrifier movies are, it also has like some weird alien abduction storylines and some demonic stuff thrown in. So it's kind of a collection of everything. It's kind of hard to explain the plot because there's so many different ones, but it does include Art the Clown. So if you really like Art, then that's a good one to check out. But it's not the actor that plays Art in Terrifier, Terrifier 2, and Terrifier 3. But he's still really scary in this film. I think what makes this film really scary to me is Art the Clown is really brutal in this first one. He has this really weird scene at the end where he's kind of approaching the camera slowly. And I think that's why this made the list, because I was so scared of watching him just like creepily walking towards the camera. And this was the first time I had ever seen Art the Clown. So I think that's why this was so terrifying to me, because it was something I hadn't really seen before. I've seen scary clowns in movies, obviously, but something about Art in this one and how brutal and silent and weird he is, it's just really off-putting, because I feel like in the later Terrifier movies they made him really silly and campy, so you can't really take him as seriously. But in All Hallows Eve, he's like scary, like scarier than Terrifier 1, I think. So if you're really scared of clowns, this is a good one to check out. It does have some sillier storylines, like the alien one. That one's not really that creepy, but the other stories in it are creepy, so you could just skip the alien one if you don't want to laugh. Finally, we have the Taiwanese movie Incantation. I've recommended this before on my channel because it's really good. You guys should check it out. But it's essentially about this woman who has this weird experience when she's younger at this religious retreat, and she ends up breaking a lot of rules of the religion and doing things she isn't supposed to, and discovering a lot of really dark secrets. And then she ends up giving birth to a daughter. And her mental health's not very good, so she loses custody of her daughter. But when she gains custody of her daughter back, she realizes that her daughter is actually going through something really, really weird and is getting progressively sicker, and that there's something paranormal going on. Now, why I find this movie so scary is, once again, it's kind of like a found footage film, but also it has to do with curses. And a big part of this movie is they say the curses out loud. And then they essentially tell you, like, if you don't want to be cursed, then cover your ears during this audio. So it makes you feel like by watching it, you're getting cursed, which I find so freaking scary that I was like over here like, I am so superstitious to the point where I can't even say certain things out loud because I feel like something bad will happen. Probably has to do with my OCD, but this movie will legit make you think that you've been cursed, and you'll walk away from it and be thinking about it for days. Because not only does it make you feel like you're cursed, but it also has some absolutely terrifying jump scares that are really, really well done. And I just love Taiwanese horror in general. I think it's really, really underrated. And I think this is just a solid horror movie in general. One of the best on this list. So if you're gonna check one out, I would highly recommend this one. But hopefully you check out all the movies I recommended today. If you haven't seen some of them, I would love to know your thoughts in the comments. What is the scariest movie you've ever seen? I know this has to do a lot with personal taste, so it's gonna vary between person to person. But hopefully you find these ones pretty creepy. And yeah, let me know if you like them, if you end up watching any of them, and don't forget to like and subscribe because that really helps me out. I'm trying to build my channel, so I'm trying to post more. So turn on those post notifications if you would like some more spooky content, and I hope you guys enjoyed this list. Bye guys!